So for anybody who has a dream and wants to do anything outside the box, what would you say to that person who feels a little
You
discouraged?
have a hope and a dream that you want to be a writer, a painter, a musician, any kind of an artist, a filmmaker, go do it. Go make those films. I feel like the only person that could say no to you is yourself.
Greetings, everybody. What's up? This is indeed the E-Man show, like the villain, singing like Bob Dylan, keep it on the low with some double stuff Oreos. And I am so excited and so happy. I have an amazing, legendary director in the house right now. She is responsible for some iconic music videos like Tone Loc's Wild Thing, Young MC's Bust the Move, Hanson's Bop, and Where's the Love. Also, she's directed a handful of episodes on TV like Grey's Anatomy. I want to say Ugly Betty. But you might know her from these iconic comedies. CB4 starring Chris Rock, Adam Sandler's Billy Madison. Hey, kids, it's me. I bet you thought that. It's always in my head. And one of my favorite movies, comedies of all time, which is Half Baked, starring Dave Chappelle. So I am so honored. I am so happy. And also, I want to say that she has this amazing documentary for anybody who loves boy bands and 90s music like myself, called Larger Than Life. It's on Paramount Plus, and it's an amazing documentary. I can't wait to talk about it. I have the legendary Tamra Davis in the house today. How are you doing, Tamra?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
You're very, very welcome. We were talking before the show, and how are things? You're in California. How's the weather? How are things? How are you enjoying this fall season so far?
Good. It's good. I live out near the beach in Malibu, and it's good, except for it's strange here. They literally will just cut your power off if it gets windy. So, like, some
Wow.
you have to go like 2 or 3 days without power. And that's kind of like, there's something I like that you're like under candlelight and solar chargers and stuff. But then you're also like, man, how could people just like cut your power off for days? Yeah. So
Yeah, that
it's
is
good. It's, yeah.
that is weird. I know. I don't know. I remember watching the documentary of some kind, and I remember them talking about in Japan at certain times of the day they cut off certain power things too to kind
Mhm,
of conserve
yeah.
energy.
Yeah, yeah. I know
Yeah.
you'd think like, oh yeah, like it's off between 3 and 4 p.m. for whatever your appliance is. But we go sometimes like days, like 2, 3 days. Yeah, I mean, you're like, you think you pay the most property taxes and you're just like, this is crazy. But I think because of the fires. But yeah, so it's like a beautiful place. It's really in nature, but it's like, oh, it's also rustic. So it's
Yeah.
not,
Nice.
yeah.
Um, I always like to start off with the childhood when it comes to my podcast. I really feel like it's really foundational. And you were born in California, Studio City, California.
Yeah.
Um, I, I always ask people because, like, as a kid, I was obsessed with cereal. One, what was your favorite cereal growing up?
Oh my
Two,
God.
what was your favorite Saturday morning programming? And what movie? And I understand, like, growing up, your grandparents played a huge influence as far as like what you would watch on TV and movies. But what was the movie that really knocked your socks off to where you were like, oh my gosh, I have to be an actress?
So first of all, favorite cereal. I mean, I was obsessed with all the bad ones. Like, but we had Captain Crunch and Count Chocula and like all
Yes.
these like, I don't know, all these like crate Frankenberry, I don't know, Cocoa Puffs. We had like Sugar Smacks. Like they're the craziest names, but
Yes.
honeycombs. I loved them all because I my family was a little bit more granola and healthy. And so
Yeah.
totally like buy cereal, put it in my closet, and go to my room with a glass of milk, like I'm all healthy and would just like even now, there's like a cereal that I have in my house that I just got that's like I don't know, I love cereal. Um yeah, and then my favorite, so you said favorite TV show growing up. I mean, I don't know, like we used to love Laugh-In. Remember? I mean, when I was a kid, they had Laugh-In.
Yeah.
So it was like a kid, they let us watch it. And it was like kind of nasty, like funny and sexy and nasty and like it was all these under jokes and you're like, what did they say? Did they really say, So I don't know, I really liked laughing and stuff. Um, and so I mean, so many shows. We had Soul Train, so you could like dance in the morning. So I loved that, like just putting on Soul Train. So I don't know, I loved TV, loved Bewitched. I was obsessed with all the like yeah, like Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie and Gilligan's
Yeah.
Island, Brady Bunch, all that. Um, and then what did you say? The movie. I think like just I was always watching movies. We always had old movies on, and so I just felt like it was like it within, I don't know, just like always lots of old movies from my grandma watching them and my mom watching them. And I don't know, I think like just seeing all those like beautiful old movie stars, they were so captivating. And I didn't, because I was a girl, that's what I thought. But I was more obsessed with like Alfred Hitchcock. Like I was like, how does he do it? He's so creative.
Right.
Like, and just marveling at his camera techniques and, just watching what he was able to do. So loved old movies, loved Howard Hawks, screwball comedy, anything having to do with that. So I think like all of that really inspired me. But yeah, I didn't know it was possible to be a director though. I thought like, oh, in Hollywood, you're an actress if you're a girl.
Yeah, and I really, doing my research, I found it really fascinating. And of course, being living during that time, because it's like when a lot of the spotlight wasn't on a lot of female directors. Like if I had to name it off the top of my head, and especially during that time, I'm a huge fan of Eve's Bayou, and Casey Lemons was like,
It was
I thought,
later. I love
yes,
Casey Lemons, but yeah, she was making films right around the time I was making films. But like you don't, it wasn't like when I was a kid, there was a Casey Lemons out there that you could be like, oh, cool, Casey Lemons. I mean, maybe there was like I had Penelope Spheris, so she was kind of cool,
yeah,
So she was like making movies, but she was kind of like hardcore. Like you couldn't just go up to Penelope Spheris and say like, "Hi, I really admire what you do. I want to be a director." She would probably like, I don't know. She is not like a friendly, open person to like just go up and want to be. Like you didn't want to be her. But I admired her. Yeah, there weren't a lot of role models for me at that time. Nora Ephron, you'd hear her name, but it was like this whole other style of Hollywood that was kind of beyond me.
yeah. Well, and even like I was thinking about, Sophia Coppola, and and for a time you were like under the wing of Francis Ford Coppola, and trying to and training and learning and things like that. And he suggested that you go to school. Um, but what was the turnaround point? What am I? What I'm asking, like, okay, what was the turnaround point where you realized, like, and was it difficult for you to transition from being an actress into being a director? Did it hurt? To kind of put that to the side and do something different, or were you just okay with that?
I felt like as a young girl actress that I just really had no control and just like I was like, oh my God, like and I think as always, any actor, actress, or anybody that's trying something, it takes so much effort. You have to just like give it 7 years or something of just being like okay with rejection for 7 years. And if it still
Yeah,
doesn't work out, then maybe. But I was a young girl and it just seemed like kind of weird and creepy. Some of it, like, oh, okay, like Hollywood was weird in the 80s. But I did get an opportunity to go to Italy to become an actress. So I went to Italy to become an actress and I got to watch some of the most incredible masters directing. And it was actually then that I realized that I preferred to be behind. I was like, oh my God, that's what I'd rather do is be the person behind the camera. But of course, it was like, not, I just felt like that. I was best friends with like or close friends with a girl that was an actress, and I could see how she was so talented and she was so good at it. And thought, oh my God, she's so much better than me. I would rather direct her than be the person in front of the camera. And yeah, so I went back and she was an actress. She was Nastasia Kinski. And so she was on that film, One from the Heart with Francis Ford Coppola. And so that's how I kind of made my way. I got onto that set and yeah, and just kind of, yeah, tried to ask Francis as many questions as I could about
yeah.
what is the path to becoming a director. And he advised me to go to film school. So that was really cool. Yeah.
That is cool. And you went to Los Angeles City.
Yeah, I didn't have any money. I was like whatever. My family didn't really come from money. So I went to LA City College where, yeah, it was just like $50 a semester back in those days. So it was super cheap. And
Wow.
I also liked the program where you made your films and you could keep your films. And I knew had friends and, just kind of UCLA and USC were close by, but those were super expensive. And also the films that you made became the property of UCLA or USC. So you couldn't really use, to me, I needed something so I could go out and get money to make a movie. So I wanted to be able to show my movies and go enter them in film festivals and things like that.
Hmm. Cool. Very cool. I was listening to a podcast that you were on, and I forget the name of it, so forgive me. And there were you guys were it was a Hanson podcast.
Oh,
And
cool.
one thing I love about talking to people and doing the research is I had no idea that you directed that video. And I love what you said in that interview. And it's something that I kind of live by when it comes to like doing something creative. With that video specifically, you kind of tapped into your inner child, your inner 12-year old, and you decided to use that to create that video. Um, and I really do believe in that. I had a conversation with actor Dante Bosco, who was he was in Hook, and also he does the voice of Prince Zuko, and we were talking about the movie Hook because he has a show called the Monday Cinema Club, and that was the movie of the week. And I was telling him there's a part in Hook where I learned that you have to tap into your inner child sometimes to kind of do something creative and do something outside of the box when people are telling you no, 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 no. And like, and so when you said that, that really resonated with me. Um, can you tell me
Yeah.
more about like, working with the Hanson brothers and how that all came about? Lovely video. Love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I got into making music videos because, yeah, it was I guess Hollywood at the time wasn't really ready for like a young girl filmmaker. And so, but
Right.
MTV was just happening at that time and they didn't care. And I had developed like a cool style. And so I was getting work doing music videos. And I sometimes do videos of bands that nobody had ever heard of before. That was kind of my specialty. Like, I would do them for like the lower budget ones because whatever, I wasn't like a big director. But I also liked, I don't know, I like different kind of music as well. I wasn't really into the big pop stuff. So, yeah, somebody sent me this Hanson music and it was produced by the Dust Brothers. And I knew the Dust Brothers because of Tone Loc and Young MC and the Beastie
Yeah.
Boys, Dust Brothers, and they worked a lot with Delicious Vinyl. So I knew them and they just done the single Mbop for Hanson. And I listened to it and I thought it was really fun and catchy. But then I looked at the pictures of these boys, and oh my God, I was like, if I was a little girl, I would just be losing it over these little boys. They were the cutest things I've ever seen. And so I just like, so when you're saying, I directed it as if I was one of their fans. And I think, like, just with my mind, like, what would I want to see? But I really do feel that I use that approach all the time, that I really try to become, I can't do it. It has to be authentic, but I really become the like the biggest fan of what I'm working on. And I feel that then I can have an authentic experience that when I'm watching something, I'm delivering what I want to see as somebody that just loves that person. And so
Mm.
whether it's an Adam Sandler film or a Dave Chappelle or a TV show, The Politician or Ugly Bit, whatever it is, I really try to become the biggest, like really love that. And what's the best thing? What do I love most about this? And how do I make something that if I was the audience, that would be my favorite thing to watch? And so that's kind of been a driving thing of what I do, but it always has to be authentic. It can't be like, it has to be for real. And in a weird way, it helps give me confidence because I have something to at least guide me. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not just like try it all. It's like, oh, yes, this is it. I feel this. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's like it's coming from a real place. It's
Real
coming from a
place.
genuine place. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Like,
Um, what are you about to say? I'm sorry.
oh no, just that like I did a documentary and like I on another one for the one I did on Basquiat and it was like I had to really like get emotional and cry. Like I wanted the audience to cry, so I
Yeah.
needed to feel that emotion in the edit room. It wasn't just like, oh, I'll put some things together and hopefully you'll cry. It was like I needed to feel how that it's real. you have to really feel that. When I'm on a set directing a comedy, I have to really be laughing. It's not like, haha, that was funny. Whatever, you have to really be laughing or try not to laugh because you don't want to wreck the take. But it's that all has to be authentic. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Speaking of the comedies, like I said, you directed CB4 starring Chris Rock, Adam Sandler's Billy Madison, and of course Dave Chappelle's Half Baked. You're working with these three guys who are kind of just like on the come up of becoming who they are going to be. Um, the, Looking back at it, do you find like a common thread between the three to where you know what I mean, where you kind of use those tools and to for the present time or how direct stuff when it comes to comedy?
I mean, I feel like I was in a unique place at the right time. The first one I did was CB4, and that was for Universal as well. They're all for Universal. So there's similarity in that I was doing kind of these a little bit behind the Universal logo. Like we would make them on the side in Canada, and then Universal was going to distribute them. But I still had to work with the Universal presidents and studio people. But these were comedies also by unknown. These guys were like unknown. Like Chris
Yeah,
Rock had done one. He did like what was that movie with he wore that hat? It was like I don't know. He was like in one movie before he did CB4. It was like, but he was on SNL, so he was known from
right.
that. And so that's a very similar, that's like wherever there's a joke, you try to get a joke, so it's like real joke comedy. And I knew Chris, I did a video with him before, I did a PSA with him, and I was really close with Nelson George, who wrote the film with Chris. And Nelson's like an incredible music historian, lived in New York. Like I've known Nelson forever. He's a genius music historian. And so that was amazing. And then I really liked that experience. And then Universal had me asked me to do Billy Madison, but I went and I met with Adam, but I did not get the movie. Adam chose to work with a friend of his, but then they started filming and they were only like 3 days in filming and it wasn't going well. So the studio pulled the plug and they brought me in and I flew with the president of Universal on a Thursday and by Monday I was directing Billy Madison. So
Wow.
that was a crazy situation. But and then Half Baked was like same producer, Bob Simons is Billy Madison, like loved, had so much fun with Bob. And then he sent me this script. He's like, you got to read the script by these two young kids. They're 23 years old, Dave Chappelle, Neil Brennan. Again, nobody's ever seen anything. Dave's been in one movie as well. Um, and then I read that first scene and I was like, oh my God, Bob, I'm freaking out. This is crazy. The 7-Eleven scene. I was like, Bob, I'm in. I'll read the rest of the script, but this is hilarious. I'm like, I'm in. And I met with Dave and Neil, and they were the funniest guys ever. And just like, they had so many ideas. They're 23. I mean, they were babies. So I'm like meeting baby
Yeah.
Dave and all his. And so for me, it was really like, one, I had to really get their sense. All of these guys have different humor, but they're all similar. But I really had to get their sense of humor. What's funny? What do they love? And just technically, whatever, make sure that I make the movie and just let them do their job. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everything's gonna be ready. I'm super efficient. I have the whole thing all planned out. We're gonna be done in 10, whatever, exactly. I'll finish exactly on time. Like I'm very technical that way, so that when those amazing comedians, which is like putting lightning in a bottle on set, when they come on set, we're ready. It's like you go in there, you do your thing. Do we get it? Yes, we thought it was funny. Let's try something else. Let's try something we never tried before. Just go in there and have fun. Just whatever it is to create the moment and make them so that the set is fun. It's light. It's like there's no tension, there's no stress. I'm super chill and have fun and try to make people laugh. We're just here to have fun. So making
And
comedies is super fun. Yeah, I did a show last called After Party, and that was super fun. And I got to work with some of the most incredible comedians on that as well.
that's really really cool.
Yeah.
I have I have a friend of mine and she had a question, which I'm pretty sure you do get often about Dave Chappelle. What was it like working with Dave Chappelle? But also, being that this is like one of his first roles and which catapulted him to like greatness. What does it feel like looking at his career now, knowing that you played a part in humble, a part in like to where he's at right now? And like,
Well, I mean, I feel like that's kind of the story of my career in a way that I've had the privilege of working with a lot of people right at the very beginning, but it's because like when I met Dave, I thought he was the funniest person I'd ever met. Like I thought he made me laugh so hard. Like we would sometimes at night we'd just be standing on a street corner and I couldn't even stand. And I was like on the ground. Like you can't, he was so funny. And so to me, it was like, how do I get that on film? Like that's my job is not like trying to be like, oh, I'm going to make him famous or everyone. It's how do I capture that? How do I get that on film so that he could be the best version of himself so everybody could see who he could be within this, the limitation of what the script was or the scenes and all that stuff, but just to have fun
right, right,
and also give somebody an experience where they want to come back. It's like it's fun to make a movie. So I want to give you also an experience where you're having fun because that's your life. If your life now is making films or touring or whatever, I don't want to like make it a stressful, horrible, and you're like, oh, I hate this. I want to go home. I never want to do this. I want to build a career too, like be like, oh, I love this. Like, I want to make another movie. This is really fun. So I think that's part of what an experience you could have. And I mean, looking back at any of them, looking back at Chris Rock's career, looking back at Adam Sandler's career, looking back at Dave Chappelle, I mean, who knew? But it's also that, I don't know, like that's the person I saw. It's Hanson. Like I saw passport photos of them, or
yeah,
whatever, Tone Loc and Young MC back in those days. It was nothing. Like you see nothing and you just believe it. And you're like, once in a while it hits. I mean, I'm lucky that some of the things that I liked early on and I got to work with, that I can't believe they hit, but they don't always hit right away. Like you also have to realize, like, when whatever those movies came out, like a lot of times I was trashed. They just trash you. And so you have to
mm,
like, be strong enough as an artist and be like, you know what? I can't believe it, but like all those newspapers, they just ripped us apart. They always do. But yeah, then I just like had to be like, you know what? Fuck them.
right, right,
They don't get it. They don't get it. Like we got it. Cal
yeah,
loved it. Dave loved, you're the people I made it for. We had fun. The audience, their audience loved it. So you have to be kind of tough because honestly, you put your thing that you also love out there and you're like, you want everybody to love it too, because it's like sharing something and then people just feel like they can like poop on it. So now I just don't even look at stuff and I just am happy if somebody watched something and they enjoyed it and they had fun. I'm like, how great. But like I can't look at what people write about anymore. It's like too heartbreaking because yeah, it's
yeah.
hard.
It's like you can't please everybody, so it's just like, what's
Please
the point?
everybody, and you just wait for the test of time. As long as during the time you made it, you were happy with it and you were true to the thing you made. Sometimes it takes a while for culture to catch up to something that's unique and different. That's what I have learned. Same thing with Basquiat. Nobody wanted, he thought his career was over at 27 right before he died. Now
Mm,
he's the biggest artist America's ever seen. So it's like his paintings sell for over 125, $30 million, yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's like, whatever. He he died. He listened to everybody. He listened
mm.
to critics, and as they told him that his career was over at 27 and he sucked. Yeah.
And like you said, like his work stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Um,
He would have lived it out because whatever, as an artist. So yeah, so I think like that's the only thing is yeah, those guys are just heroes and amazing and really like kings of culture. Like they've really done so much for popular culture and really have brought so much joy to so many people.
yeah, like
So
I could tell you, like in like my show is about giving a person their flowers. When I watched Half Baked in a movie theater, like with a friend of mine, and
fun.
I'm not one to just laugh at anything. I'm not a fan of Three Stooges and slapstick. For a long time, I thought something was wrong with me because things people will laugh at. I'll be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that movie is just, and before then I had never tried weed or anything like that. But that movie was just so funny.
Tailor made for that. Yeah, we just
It
like had fun with it. We were
so
making it for
funny.
us, for for your friends, for yeah, and that's what and I sometimes they make movies like that, and I hope that people get to make those movies more, like I feel like somehow we've gotten into all this, and they were like, oh, but now there's TV, but we've kind of there was a time that we lost a little bit of this indie spirit, but I feel like some of it's back now. I've seen some fun movies lately.
I hope so. And I just had a discussion on a different podcast about that where like I feel like especially after COVID or even before then, after the whole movie theater going experience is starting to kind of like, taper.
Yeah,
It takes something really big and
to bring
spectacle
it
like for
back.
people to bring people to the movie theaters, and I hate that because I remember a time like I would just see something like Half Baked or even like Eddie Murphy's Boomerang, which is like one of my favorite Eddie Murphy films.
Best.
And
So fun to laugh in a theater, but
yeah,
it's also community, and that's something that we really need to have
yeah,
more of, like, and to help our own like mental health is to have community. And going out to see movies is really nice. Right now in Hollywood, they're screening all the Academy movies, and I really love going to the screenings and seeing people and talking afterwards and listening to the Q&As. And you start to see a sense of community. And I think like but that's not just Hollywood. I feel like any small town that has a theater, you could, have whatever, like start a theater club, start a movie, go talk about it afterwards. Because I
yeah,
think that's something that we lack a lot is community where you actually go to a place and you see a human in person. And
yes.
the theater is a great place to meet up with a bunch of friends.
One of my favorite jobs I've ever had in my lifetime was working at a movie in Wilton, North Carolina. I worked at this movie theater called the Regal Cinema Six, and like every Thursday we would like screen a movie, but just to make sure, because this is back when it was on
Yeah.
the big reels, so you had to make
Yeah.
sure everything was cool and spliced
Yeah.
correctly. And man, we like Kill Bill Volume One and Mate in the Matrix. All of these movies we're screening them, but we're also having our own commentary and we're talking about it. It,
You're
it, it
with
was
your friends. It's
it was
so
great.
fun. Oh, that's so great. I love
It
that.
it
I
was
love
so
that.
fun, so much fun. I wanted to ask two questions about Half Baked. There's two scenes that always make. There's a lot of scenes that always make me laugh, but there's two scenes that really crack me up. And one of them is with this is what I miss about before the internet. I was totally surprised to see Bob Saget just pop up and say that line.
That was so crazy.
But also David Edwards, and I'm a huge fan of the Real World, at least the first three seasons of it, and to see David Edwards. What are your memories of of course, unfortunately, Bob Saget passed away. What are your memories of Bob and that whole scene? Because the scene is hilarious.
I remember it because my producer, Robert Simons, produced that kid movie that Bob Saget was in. There's like some famous child, I have to should look it up, but there's some movie that Bob Simons produced that Bob Saget was in. So they have
Okay.
like an old relationship. And also Bob Saget, he used to do a lot of stand-up, and
Yes.
they would always tell me like, oh, stand-up's really like nasty. It's really, really nasty. And I'm like, all right, all right. And and I think like he was trying to like just loosen up his image a little bit because been on that television show
Uh,
forever.
yeah. Full House.
Full House, yeah. And so I think he really wanted to like just shake it up, you know. And they told me what he was going to say, but they didn't let anybody else know in the obviously, all the extras or anything. So when he said that, it was like nobody knew what he was going to say.
Wow.
So it really did have that impact of like, and he was so funny to watch him before he did it because he had to really act, he had to really work himself into it. And so I was like, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna like because she'd be pacing and he was like really working himself up to do this line, also knowing like he's gonna do it, he's gonna do it. And so it was kind of like this, it was almost like he was about to do a backflip or something. Everybody was like priming it up for this moment or whatever. I had no idea what to expect because I was like, whatever, like people are gonna. I had no idea. Like it didn't seem that risky, but the way he said it and delivered it, and then seeing the reaction of everybody, we just it like you couldn't. We all just like lost it. Like you couldn't film afterwards. We were all just on the ground dying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, were there a lot of scenes like that? I mean, like, cause I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's where you'd want to get to while you're filming. You want to get to the place where you can't even say anything. You're just on the floor. Yeah, you're like everybody's out. Yeah, everybody's out. Even the sound man can't hold the boom anymore. The DP, everybody's out. Yeah.
wow.
Everybody. Yeah.
There's another scene too that always cracks me up, and I know it's more this is more of a writer's question, but perhaps you have an answer for it. Where there's a scene with Clarence Williams, rest in peace, and then also with Dave Chappelle, and they're having this phone conversation, and then it goes, Samson, this is Sheila. Mama fell. Shut up, bitch. It's hilarious. But my question is I interpret that scene as because the last thing he says, Clarence says is shit. And the way he says it's almost like he almost believed what Dave Chappelle was putting out. And so like he was kind of relieved that it wasn't the truth. I don't know. What's your
Tell
interpretation of
you
that
this.
scene?
I mean, I have no idea, but first of all, like Clarence, he's very intimidating. He's not like, hey,
Wow, okay.
how's it going? Like he's not that kind of guy. Like he's an intimidating guy, or he was an intimidating guy. And I swear to God, we felt like he played it straight. Like we felt like he had no idea he was in a comedy, that he was playing this movie like like he was there, he's not making jokes. He is serious.
Wow.
And like even talking to him, if he wanted to make a suggestion, oh my God. He was like it was not easy. It was,
Wow.
and I feel like I could ask Dave about this, what his recollection is, but in my experience, I felt like he almost was playing the whole movie straight, almost like an incredibly dramatic performance over the top. So if you look back at it, he's not trying for laughs. He is like
Wow.
fully, I am that drug dealer.
That's incredible because he's able to get the laughs even though he's playing it serious and
Oh yeah,
straight.
he's
That's
playing it. He's
crazy.
not trying to make us, yeah, it wasn't like he was like doing comedic performance. No, he was that. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. And
He was, yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I'd be remiss in not mentioning the rest of this amazing cast. Like you got Rachel True,
Mhm.
you got Guillermo Diaz, Guillermo,
Guillermo, I
Guillermo
know Guillermo.
Diaz.
Yeah.
He's amazing, and then you got Jim Brewer, you got Harlan, and you got all of these amazing cameos, and the Snoop Dogg cameo. I just got to ask, is that real weed or no?
That was also a funny story. Yeah, that was of course real weed. Yes. And Snoop was like a huge fan of CB4, so he came on and he knew every word of every song in CB4 and he just would like
Wow.
sing them to me. He was like, "Oh no, no, listen to this." And I'd be like, I knew every word, as if it was for real. And I was like, that's so funny. So he goes and he sits on the steps and he starts smoking, and we have fake weed the whole time because you can't smoke weed and remember your lines. It's just like it's not gonna work. And so so there was always fake weed. And then but Snoop's like, there's no way he's smoking fake weed, or Willie Nelson, no way. Those guys did not smoke fake weed. And so then and all of a sudden, I mean that stoop is not New York City, it's Universal Studios. So I'm shooting on the Universal Studios back lot. Like it was kind of like
Wow.
I think I was editing there or whatever, we were doing our post, and it was like, oh, Snoop can do it. Let's just film him on the back lot on one of those stoops. And it was like, okay, okay, like Sesame Street or something. So we go to film it,
Wow.
and then all of a sudden I start to see security guards are surrounding us. And I'm like, oh shit, we're in trouble now, and they're like getting closer and closer. And then I don't cut. I just keep going because I'm like, oh my God, if I cut, I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble, but maybe I'll keep going. And by then the joint will be done and the police won't
Right, right.
stop me. So then we stop, and then the police immediately are like, oh, Snoop, can I get your, autograph? They just wanted his autograph. They were so happy to see him. And I was like, oh, okay, thank God.
That
Because it
is so
was
cool.
legal, and we were like on Universal, like the tour buses would go by, and Snoop's just there smoking a joint out in the middle of no everywhere. Yeah.
But even the okay, so most of that film was filmed in Toronto, right?
Yeah, Jon Stewart's in it. There's so many
Yes,
people. There's so many people in that movie.
but most of the film is filmed. It's not filmed in New York. It's filmed in Canada, right?
Pretty much all of it was filmed in Toronto. Yeah, in Canada.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I did like some shots in New York to make it look like New York. So we went down and we did like a few days in New York, street stuff. And then yeah, and then we did like pickups here and there, like just, if I needed to do a pickup of like a
So even like the Toronto, like the Times Square shots, that's in Times Square though, right?
probably, yeah, yeah. I would like when we did selling weed, like when they're on the bikes or like in the middle of the street, like we went
Okay,
to New York and shot that.
that is so cool, man.
But
Oh
like when the
gosh.
horse dies on the street and all that's in Toronto. Yeah.
Oh, that's one of my favorite parts too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
All
my
the
goodness. Well, we have to go and get into this beautiful documentary called Larger Than Life. It's on Paramount Plus right now.
Mhm.
I have said on my podcast a million times, like one of my biggest dreams is like to get at least one, if not all of the Backstreet Boys on my show because I'm such a huge fan of theirs. Like their
They're
music
so
really did help me at a time where I was really depressed, and so
cool.
this is so crazy and how serendipitous how this thing happened because I watched that documentary 2 days ago, and
Mhm.
it took me some. First, I didn't have Paramount Plus, but something told me to watch it because I'm
Uh-huh.
already a fan of those groups. But then, like the watch it, I'm always a nerd. I'm always reading the credits, and I see your name. I'm like, wait a minute, the same director Half Baked directed this. Oh gosh, I gotta get in contact with her. And I was just so psyched. And the documentary is so cool because like there have been other documentaries. I know Lance Bass has one, which is really great, but this one is really cool because it goes down the whole span and the timeline of all of these boy bands. My question for you is, what's your definition of a boy band? To me, I feel like that's something that the industry has. Of course, it originated in Germany, but that's something that the industry put out. But if only fans really know, like because people it has a stigma to it because people assume if they're boy bands they're not talented and they can't sing. But if once you become a fan and listen to the music like the Backstreet Boys, you listen to them like, oh no, they're a 5 part harmony group. They could really sing and they could really dance and they really pay homage to the groups before them, like Boys to Men and Shy and all of those other groups because they covered a lot of their songs when they're on the come up. So, what's your definition of a boy band?
I mean, I feel like I made a whole movie about it so that you could kind of try to define it. And
Yes.
in a way, I felt that there's something about a group of young men, and they all seem to they all harmonize. So I think like being able to harmonize together, a harmony group is a boy band. So I think and that goes back to early like Temptations, for taught, like that's why I was like, I'm trying to pull you back to those groups too, to show you that it comes from that, this being able to harmonize. And then I think that once one of those bands forms, whether they have play music or not, then it becomes something that fans discover, and the fans in a way make the boy band. That
Hmm.
and you never know which band is going to hit. It really is based on the likes of this populace that discovers it and promotes it on their own. And and I felt like that was the thing that also was never talked about, was how influential the fans are in creating these phenomena. And
Definitely.
and to give them the flowers as well, like to give the band and also see that these bands really were good. They were good, they've had hits, and to give them props because people would make fun of them just because their audience was young girls. And when I started to realize that, I was like, oh, I've got something to say about this topic because these bands were really good and they shouldn't be made fun of because they appeal to young girls. Like that's just that's wrong. And that the young girls who discover them, you realize that, oh, they're having like it's their first crushes. It's them first finding
Right.
out like what that means for girls and boys, to have that discovery of what, love, that first thing, and they're singing about love always. And like you said, you realize that some of these bands get a lot of these people through tough times. They're the soundtrack of your youth, and
For
that
sure.
has like a nostalgia thing to you, and it gets you through those times. And that's something that I also thought was important. And yeah, the same thing that you just said when I have these girls talking about like how One Direction got them through like tough times in school. It was like a safe place for them, a place to have fun and enjoy something. You realize like it's more than just like a pop song, that this is also somebody's memory, somebody's connection, somebody's first love. Um, yeah, and there's a lot to that. Somebody's finding a community. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I love. I think somebody had said it in the documentary. They made this great analogy. They said where, well, guys, they go and pay money for these tickets at NFL games or soccer games, and they're cheering and they're losing their minds. Like, well, what's the difference? It's literally the
Yeah.
same thing. We paid for
Yeah.
the tickets. I went to a Backstreet Boys concert for the first time like 2 or 3 years ago, and I got to tell you, man, it's nuts, man. I mean, it's so much fun. And like at first, like when it was like around 8:30 and nobody was really there, and then as soon as 9 o'clock hit, everybody was there and they were losing their minds. We had a great time. Um, uh, the real cool thing about this documentary is one, going through the whole documentary, like 70% of it, I'm like, okay, I remember this, and I remember this. I consumed a lot of MTV. Um,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really glad you kind of like you can literally take portions of that documentary and make mini documentaries because the 1999, and I've said this before, the
Mhm.
1999 Video Music Awards was
Oh yeah,
so
that was
important.
big. Yeah.
I mean, the performances from Kid Rock to Run DMC coming out, NSYNC and Britney, and then Backstreet had a performance, and Chris Rock, he hosted it, and the
It's
crazy thing is,
so
I don't
legendary.
think MTV knew
Yeah.
that they
How
they
big
they,
that
they kind of went all out because this is like before the year 2000. They didn't know if Y2K was going to happen or not. So it's really fascinating to see, and I had no idea. And I'm a fan of a lot of this stuff. I had no idea Johnny Wright was that involved in a lot of stuff. You could make a documentary on him alone.
I know he never did like he never does interviews. And he was in the office with me and we were waiting for AJ. And I was like, and I've known him for a long time because I knew I did a New Kids on the Block video. So that's how I
Right.
knew Johnny from the old days. And I knew him from when I worked with Britney, with Justin. And so and I've known him, yeah, I've known him all along. But he never does interviews. And I sat him down and I was like, what? I was
Yes.
and he was so honest and authentic, and he really wanted to set the story straight in his eyes too, or what his experience was. And because I knew the Backstreet Boys story, I knew the NSYNC story, but to
Yes.
see the rivalry and the thing
Yeah.
interconnected, I was like, whoa, I never heard that story, that they were like hiding them and they wouldn't let, I was like, and they really look just like, I was like, oh my God, like that part had no idea. And then I knew the things with, yeah, so I just couldn't believe how involved he was. And then when he said Jonas Brothers, I was like, what? I had
That
no
that
idea.
I didn't know.
Me neither. Oh, Christian rock. I was like, what the? So yeah, I just was in shock. And I
Yeah.
loved his interview and he was so great. And he was one of my producers and I really loved working with him because he kind of what got me the job, the same thing as like Van and Johnny came to me and I said, look, you guys, I just want you to know I'm going to make this movie like a fangirl because I am the biggest fan. So I'm not making like a dark drag it up, make people feel bad about I was like, I am going for fun and fandom. I'm like, this is for me. I was
I
like,
love
I
that.
love these bands. I was like, I'm like a girl. I'm just going to fan out on, I'm going to give you a lot of information and history, but I am making the thing that makes me happy because they really brought me, let them say their stuff, but also just make something that makes you feel good. I was like, I want to dance. I want to have fun. When those songs come on, I like, I've watched it with my girlfriends. We get up, we try to do all the dance steps, we do the moves, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. And
Yeah.
I love that. Like I said, you not only include the mate, like Chris Patrick is in it, and then AJ, um, but also you have Donny Osmond, you have Michael Bivins. I
I
mean,
know Michael
come
Bivins,
on,
he was so key. I really wanted to.
Donnie Wahlberg too.
Donnie Wahlberg was so good, but it was really important for me to give that credit to New Edition because they were really, really important. And Maurice Starr and that connection, I
Yeah,
felt like I was uncovering a detective story. I was like, what? Like he says, now I'm going to do it with five white guys, and he creates
yeah,
news on the block. I was like, that's crazy. I'd never heard that before. So
yeah.
I was into it myself. I made it for myself as well. I was like, this is what I want to know. I want to know how, and also just like you think like a talent show got you big, or you got big because on MTV, like there were ways you could make it. Like in the industry now, it's so you see like what they have to do in K-pop. So I take you all the way through. Like you're getting an
Yeah,
education
K-pop
in
too. Yeah,
K-pop too. So nobody knows that much about it. But K-pop is huge. But that's the only way people can make a star now is they're doing it that way. So we'll see. But I was like, yeah, I had so much fun. But also I have to say, like, when your producers are the people are your subjects in a way, I also really wanted to make sure that I made a film that made them happy.
yes.
Johnny, well, I wanted Johnny to watch this and I wanted Johnny to be happy with his participation and contribution and make the film that Johnny wanted to make as well. And, so that was really important to me because I would be heartbroken if I made a film and those guys all hated it. I want them to see it and be happy that I made something that kind of gives them all props and, gives them their flowers and shows how amazing they were and how much they meant.
I gotta say this. I agree with you 100%, and I think you did a beautiful job in doing so. The person who asked that question, the Dave Chappelle question, her name is Akissa Mendez, and she's a part of a group called Allure. In 1997, they were a part of Mariah Carey's first group
Oh, cool.
from Crave Records, and so one of the things we talked about because they've been on my show a number of times. One of the things we talked about was during the 90s there's like groups like In Vogue, Boys to Men, a lot of R&B, great R&B groups. There's a really really special time. But
Yeah.
when the 90s groups came out, like the you can have a documentary about Orlando alone. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
when you had groups like Backstreet Boys and Sync and those groups came out, there was this. I'll never forget this. It was like this intertwining of both of those genres of music. There was an issue of Teen People. I'll never forget this, where it had Nick Carter from the
Uh-huh.
Backstreet Boys, Monica, from
Yeah.
Brandy and
Yeah.
Monica, and it had all of these different genres. It was almost like a TRL special. And I mean, it's so TRL and MTV. It was just
Game
I mean, you had
changer.
to be
They
there.
were
You
so
had to
good.
be
Yeah, you
there.
had to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really magical, really, really magical. And I think your documentary perfectly, explains everything. Really, real quick, I just want to say about 98 Degrees.
Yeah.
Absolutely right, because like I remember when they first came out, and they were really marketed like the Caucasian Boys to Men. They were on Motown, and then they kind of got swept into this whole boy band thing. And I remember seeing them live, and again, they harmonized beautifully but they have this clean cut image and like it's really incredible to see. So yeah, great
Yeah, I wanted
documentary.
to like call it out because like in a way that's what you saw that like they had New Edition and then they tried to sell New Kids on the Block as a black band as well and you're like that is crazy and then they say it in the movie then these Irish guys pop up but that was like a thing that they were doing is they were trying to market these white R&B boys as black And it wasn't really working. Sometimes I guess it would, but it just was not. But that goes way back to like Elvis, and that's why
Yeah,
to me it's like it's history of. And so that's in a way without really making it about that, because you could make a whole documentary about that. I
yeah,
wanted to make sure I referenced it and you saw where it came from and talk about it without making people feel bad about it or trying to get into a whole reckoning. But if you know about it, you'll be like, oh, that's right. That's something to pay attention to. That was interesting. So thank you for noticing that. So I was like,
absolutely.
I didn't want to
And
go too down that thing, but I'm like, oh, if you're noticing what I'm saying, I'm saying something here, but with that, but still in this fast, entertaining way. Like, oh,
and the beautiful thing is all of those groups that I mentioned, they always, give props
no,
to those artists that,
totally.
yeah,
They're the best. Yeah, for
hmm
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I love. Oh,
Always, yeah. Like that's what I loved about having Donnie like really give credit back over to New Edition and just be like those guys. And I think it's really important that they get to have that out in the history of how much they appreciate it and also how much they appreciate their fans and the things that came before them. Yeah.
th- there's a and if you ever have a chance to look at it, it's really great. On there was a BET award show like 5 years ago, and New Edition and New Kids on the Block, they performed on the same stage, and they were like intertwining their songs, and it's
Oh,
it is
fun.
amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best. And I love that they're all on tour. Like that's so crazy. Almost all those bands are back on tour and going to be all doing big tours 2025.
Yeah, I'd
Yes.
be remiss if I didn't mention this. He directed Crossroads, and I this is how God works, and this is amazing. I listened to the Britney Spears book like 2 weeks ago. I completed the whole thing, and it's heartbreaking. A lot of it's heartbreaking, and the whole thing with her dad, how he treated her, and but the thing that really caught my interest with Crossroads, I don't know if you listened to the book or not, or read the book,
I
but
did. I loved it. Yes.
she I thought it was really funny. She said for
I'm
her
like, I
character in Crossroads, she used method. Oh, you got it, great. Method acting, to get into that character, and she found herself that there were moments where she just got lost into that character of
yeah.
I forgot the character's name. I clearly
It's
remember one thing about that movie. There was like there's this shirt that she wore, and they cannot keep that shirt in stock. I forgot it was some kind of college shirt. I remember that. It was all on MTV. What was it like
UCLA
working?
or something.
Yeah,
It was the best time. We had really the most incredible time working on that film. And, she was very involved in it from the very beginning. And who wrote it? Shonda Rhimes. It's like that was
yes,
her first film. Like, so she was on set all the time as well, because yeah, in case we needed anything. We had the best time. It was super amazing, amazing to do. And also the whole process all the way through. It was really great. And I think, yeah, we just were like all had we had it felt like making the movie felt like what the movie is like watching, just this really close, heartfelt moments. Zoe Saldana's in that. It's like one of her
yes,
songs.
Zoe and Justin
Aaron
Long. Oh my
Manning.
gosh,
Yeah, Justin Long, it's one of his first things. Yeah, we just Kim Cattrall. We loved it. We had so much fun making that film, and I had Brittany at such an incredible time. And it was heartbreaking because it was kind of like after that, she was with Justin at the time. After that, they broke up, and just like watching her whole life fall apart and her
yeah,
become somebody totally different, and you see how fame could really shake somebody. And sadly, because of, just she's not the person who she was before, like all the
yeah,
drugs that they put her on and whatever she went through, she's not the same girl that I knew back then, which is just heartbreaking. At least she's alive, but
yes.
that person I knew was the most amazing girl, and I loved her. I would have done anything for her. I worship that Brittany, and I'm so grateful she's still with us and she's free, you know.
Yeah,
But she's still really, they really messed her up.
they really did. I listened to that book, and I was just there were moments I was just like I was
Heartbreaking.
beside myself. I couldn't
Beside
believe.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um.
like she's the one who got called to get the movie back out because she didn't do any press for the book. She didn't do one interview for the book. And so she had the movie re-released. It wasn't available for like years, 10, 15 years. It had been sitting at the shelves on. Yeah, so she got it released. We got our deal on Netflix, and now the movie is able to be seen. But so that really meant a lot to me as well, that she wanted people to remember that version of her and, go back and
Definitely.
look at it. Because again, when that movie came out, we were trashed. Our scores were incredible because we had screenings with all girls. But then
Right.
like critics and boys come out and everybody just started thinking it was fun to make sport of, making fun of her. And hence the rest of her life, you just, if I think I have a real soft spot in my heart for people who deal with fame and celebrity and trying to deal with the, what trying to be okay at the top like that and not listen to
Right.
stuff that happens. And even because you're so vulnerable, you're putting your art out there, and that people turn around and say, it's like, whatever, just talk to your friends about it. You don't have to like go online and I don't know, and whatever. If you don't like something, just don't watch it.
Exactly.
Don't go there. Don't buy the products. But don't like crush an artist because you're not, just whatever, go somewhere else.
I remember somebody told me he's a pastor at the church I was in at the time, and he said people will always say something about his method of preaching,
Mhm.
and his response was, well, that means that you think you could do a better job than me, then you should do it. You know what I mean? So I feel like anybody, yeah, of course you're going to have an opinion, and we live in a country where we can do that and say whatever, but a
I can
lot of
have your
power
opinion.
comes in restraint and keeping certain things to yourself, and having empathy and not hurting people's feelings, because people put a
Yeah.
lot of hard work into what they do, like yourself.
Yeah.
um so yeah, I've been doing this podcasting for going on 4 years. There's a lot of ebbs and flows. Anybody does that's outside of the box, I love that you said earlier. You said like 7 years.
Yeah.
I had interviewed another director. His name was Mitra O'Corn. He directed a movie called Life in a Year. He said about we talked for a whole hour after the thing, and he was telling me, like, a lot of times it's going to take a long time to get to where you want to be. Don't give up. So for anybody who has a dream and wants to do anything outside the box, what would you say to that person who feels a little discouraged and wants to kind of give up?
You know, I feel like the only person that could say no to you is yourself, so that if you have a hope and a dream that you want to be a writer, a painter, a musician, any kind of an artist, a filmmaker, go do it. Go make those films, go make them. See if they're you won't know if you're good or not until you make it and you finish it and you play it for somebody else or show it to somebody else. And
Mm,
then if you do that and you show it and nobody likes it, then just whatever, that's your art. You could do that and it might make you happy at the end of a day or on a weekend that you have something beautiful to express yourself with, and it makes your life more fulfilling from your other jobs that you're doing, so you have
right.
outlet. Or, if you're lucky enough that that thing becomes your career, um, that's an amazing thing. But yeah, to be recognized for your art and to make that a career, that's like so rare, but such an amazing thing to have happen. And but yeah, like I am just a filmmaker. Like if I'm not working on something that I'm being hired on, I'm editing a travel video that I shot, or I'm, helping my boys on a video. I'm just constantly trying, or I'm writing something. Like I'm constantly trying to make films. And I made a
Yes.
cooking show, like when I was pregnant with two kids at home, the internet, YouTube was brand new, and I just started filming myself making recipes, and I posted them, and I made like a huge cooking show, and I became like, I found a thing that nobody had ever discovered before, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, and now I got, it wasn't like, I'm going to go out and become the next Martha Stewart. I was just like trying to make a cooking show, whatever, helping other moms try to figure out how
Right.
to their kids. But I made it for myself, like, and so I just feel like that's what you do as an artist, you do that, you have fun with that. It gives your life meaning, and it helps you feel live a more fulfilled life. And hopefully one day, if you're, all of a sudden it's good and you get recognized from it, maybe you can make a career out of it, whether it's your whole life career, or maybe just you had a hit for a few years, enjoy it. But I just feel like if you're a painter, you're probably always going to be a painter. If you're a writer and you just do that and you do it to make you happy and fulfill yourself. And, if you want people to see it, I don't know. You enter things in film festivals, you go to bookstore, you go do art thing, whatever you can to express yourself and show it. If you want to have other people share it with you, you put it out there and you see what happens, you know?
Beautifully said. And
Yeah,
like I said again, thank you. This conversation has been really great. I really had a good time talking to you. I want to say
too.
thank you so much for your time. And being able to talk about one of my favorite movies, Half Baked, and this amazing documentary. It's really been a pleasure, and I really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.